When we look at a system that's not intended to occlude or cut off our pulse, Be Strong really is a great example of this. They make a narrow, flexible band, and when it's applied correctly, we should never lose a pulse, and that includes the setup of the bands. So when you look at using Be Strong, we don't need to worry about using a handheld Doppler to see if we lose a pulse. The system is built safe enough that we should never lose a pulse when this is applied properly. The band is just intended to slow down blood flow as it comes into and as it leaves the extremity. I want to show you an example of that. When I put on the Be Strong band, I want to make sure I'm between my bicep and deltoid, so at the upper part of my arm. I'm going to secure the band with initial tension that this isn't sliding, but yet I can still get a couple fingers underneath the edge of the band. When I go to put pressure into the band, I'll use the hand pump to pump it up, and I'm going to use a pulse oximeter today to show you what happens to my pulse as I put air into the band. So I've gone ahead and put this pulse oximeter on my finger. We're using the Masimo, which gives us a lot of valuable information. It's a higher tech pulse ox. It's going to give us some advanced metrics. So with the Masimo, I can look at my pulse rate. So right now, as I'm looking here, my pulse rate's 77, and that is maintaining a steady pace. I also have what's called a perfusion index on the Masimo, which indicates the strength of my pulse. So at this point in time, it's 3.4 is the perfusion index, and it's climbing up gradually as we go. Now it's up to 3.7. But those are the numbers that we're going to take a look at. The oxygen saturation is at 99. We might speak to that slightly, but we're primarily going to be focused on our perfusion index and our pulse as I put air into the band. So when I connect to the Be Strong band, I don't have any pressure in there now. As I start to put pressure into the red band, the recommended starting pressure for Be Strong is 200 for the red band. So you can see as I start to put pressure into the band, my pulse rate is still present. I'm getting a pulse. It slowed down a little bit, but that's still present. Now you can see that the perfusion index has dropped, so instead of being in the 3s, we're now down into the mid 2s for the perfusion index. So the strength of my pulse is not as strong into my finger as I put air into the band, but I've still got a pulse at 200 millimeters mercury. As I continue to put some air into the band, I'm going to go up to about 350, which would be significantly higher than we would usually recommend folks to exercise with. You can see a pulse is still present, so I'm at 78 there, and the perfusion index has now dropped to 1.8, so we're down under 2. So the strength of my pulse is becoming weaker, but I still have a pulse into my digit, which is very important from a safety perspective. Now, one nice feature about Be Strong's band is I can continue to put air into the band all the way up to 500 millimeters of mercury, which is as much as the pump will handle, and I am still getting a pulse. But you can see that that pulse has become very weak into my digit. So this is way higher than we would typically recommend people to perform BFR with. But because the system is designed with safety in mind, we still get a pulse into the digit, and we still get blood flowing into the limb. And you'll see there as I let air out of the band that my perfusion index is coming back up. My pulse rate was a little bit higher there, so you can see that it's starting to come back down, and the strength of the pulse into my digit has been restored after I reduced pressure into the band. So that's a nice example of how Be Strong has built a system that's not intended to occlude, and we can ensure that blood flow is still moving in and out of the limb with utilization of blood flow restriction training.